Hey, gun people! So, somebody sent me this video about this guy who's who's doing a video, and hell, he's got, I don't know, 20,000 views on his video, so evidently somebody's watching him. That you shouldn't pull the slide back on a semi-automatic. I think this gun's empty. Hell, I don't know. Let me just try it. Yeah, it's empty. Okay, so all the safety Nazis. Oh, he didn't. Shut up, big dummies. They ain't got a magazine. I know my gun's empty or loaded. So, the theory of the old slide stop, the argument, is the same as the 9mm, 45. All your people are going to have your favorite. It's about 20 degrees out here. I was pulling ice out of the water bucket of my horses this morning. My fingers were so freaking cold I could barely open the door, which is exactly on point on this. So this guy in this video that somebody sent me and said, hey man, this guy is saying you shouldn't use the rip and the grab to alone. You should use your slide release. Now again, if you're a Glock instructor, you've been through any Glock training, Glock teaches this is not a slide release. It is a slide stop. It stops it to the rear. It is not made to release it to the rear. That's Glock, and that's what they teach. And you know, you may go to Colt or someone else that teaches for them, and they may go, oh no, it's a slide. And you can get an extended, and you can get a really extended that sticks way out here to where you can just slap it with your hand, or you can get it curved around and grip. Look, I'm telling you, this slide release, slide stop, whatever you want to call it, is small for a purpose. Makes it slick so it doesn't get caught on things, and it makes it to where you have to be very deliberate in order to put your finger on there and pull it down. Man, I could barely do that. It's freaking cold out here. Now, somebody's going to say, well, then you should work out. Your hands are weak. It ain't about weak, dude. It's about large muscle groups, fine motor skills. So, if you go, and I'll put a link to my fight or flight page on my website. You know, a lot of people out here making videos. I'm not saying everybody knows what they're doing or everybody doesn't know what they're doing, but what are they backing it up on? I have a dedicated website where I post things that I think are pertinent to what I'm talking about, and you can read and research it. My fight or flight page, man, I spent, I don't know if it was months, at least a month on that sucker, updating. And I was just updating it this morning. I found a couple errors when I was reading it before I went over this, because I wanted to reassure. I'm like, how is this dude teaching? And here's what he's teaching. This is a slide release. Don't listen. This is a major muscle. This is a large muscle group. Large. This isn't a fine motor skill. This is a gross motor skill. Dude, I'm sorry. I don't know how else to say that. You're full of shit, but I'll try. Man, your knowledge is in error. And from my experience and my training, and of course, the guy doing the video, oh, I've been through a lot of training. I've been through all kind of this training that I'm certified instructor. Look, training is one part of the puzzle. Just because you see somebody do something does not mean you can do it. Just because you hear what somebody does not mean you can do it. Actually doing it is what teaches the best. Okay? You can read all day about how to shoot a gun. If you've never held a gun or fired a gun, your first time you'll be like, man, I've read every book and seen every video, but this is the first time I'm holding a gun. Because you've never experienced it. So all these people who are talking, and again, I'm going to get the people that just want to hate. Oh, just because you're a cop, you think you know everything. I'm not saying that. I'm saying I was in the military, I fired and I trained with a lot of guys on a lot of real world missions and training exercises and competitions. And in civilian, I've done a lot of real world and training and competitions. So my experience is varied, but it's all practical application, whether it's exercise, planning, training, shit goes bad, actual where it works, actually when it doesn't work, seeing videos and training of people that you worked with, actually being on scene where there's shootings and people are acting funny and weird, and you see the fight or flight response, that makes a huge difference when somebody explains it to you and tell you, well, I went to this training, and because somebody that just tells where they went in training, all they're doing is telling what they were told. I mean, who's to say when they were trained that guy knew what he was talking about? Because the guys on YouTube are training people and saying, I'm training you because I went to training. And I'm like, really? I mean, look, credibility on the internet is something that you have to judge for yourself. But when I see a guy, and he seemed like a decent guy, I mean, he's a Second Amendment supporter, he's a gun guy, I got no problem. I'm not going to put a link to his video. I don't want people going over there hating him and starting some BS. But he's saying flat out, do not do the rip, pull, grab, whatever the terminology is. This large muscle group, he's saying don't do it. He said use your slide release. And he's sitting in front of a computer, and it's warm, it's not 20 degrees out here like it is here, and he's sitting in front of his computer, and he's pointing his gun at the thing, and he's saying, just use the slide. It's very simple to use the slide release. Well, of course it is. But I'm not under stress. I'm not in fight or flight. I don't have tremors. I don't have auditory exclusion. I'm not trying to save my life. I'm not in pain because I was shot, or I tripped, or I was slammed in the door. Here comes the idiot. Did you see how many times he lasered him? Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Whatever. Shut up, you big dummies. Try to keep your eye on a ball. Forgot who said it. Maybe it was Confucius. Wise man points at the moon. Only the fool concentrates on a finger. You idiots are out here worrying about, oh, he lasered. Oh, he didn't clear his gun. Oh, he's nuts. You missed the damn message. Get out of here, you freaking idiots. I'm not talking to you. So, when you're learning from somebody, you know, there's a lot of, oh, practice makes perfect. That's not true. If you practice wrong, you do not perfect the technique. You perfect the wrong technique. You perfect what you were taught wrong, but practice does not make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. If you practice the correct way, it helps. If you just run around and say, I went to this training and this guy told me this, and I went to that training and that guy told me this, and I went to this training and that guy told me this, and I watched this guy on the internet and he said this. And you know what? I believe this guy, I don't believe this guy, I like this guy doesn't clear his gun, this guy lasers himself, I don't like him, this guy wears funny hats, I don't like him. You find all these other reasons on who you want to listen to, has nothing to do with fact. I'm telling you, when fight or flight hits and you're in a life or death situation and you're in a critical, most of these people, again, have never pointed their gun at anybody. I can't count the number of people I've pointed my gun at. They've never been on an incident where someone else has shot their gun and they haven't. They've never fired their gun in the line of duty. They've never done things that I have actually experienced, and I'm telling you from experience, from my training, from what I taught, from my vast knowledge of freaking being old, of seeing shit change and pendulum swing. I'm giving you my opinion, and don't forget, and I'm not a big government fan, but I was a government expert, and I testified in the government expert, and I sent people to prison based on my expert testimony because of the law and because of search warrants and because of what other cops did and because of what I did. So I've defended my actions in court, in front of a judge, in front of lawyers, in front of juries, and I've been out there on that experience. So I'm telling you, this guy telling you to use your slide release, he's wrong. In my opinion, he's dead wrong. And he's going to get somebody killed, and people who are listening to that are not training good. They may think they're training good, and they're listening to him, but you are reinforcing bad habits. Use large muscle groups when you rack your slide all the time, every time. Do not use this slide release. Don't get in the habit of it. Forget it's even there. I mean, there was a shooting where a cop was shot. He got in a fight. Him and a female got in a fight with a dude in the room. And she was shot in the corner. She kind of went out of the fight. He was shot 3 times in his shoulder, shot a few, and he couldn't reload his mag. And she couldn't rack the slide or something. And it turned out either he got the mag in by doing it on the ground, or she put the mag in and he used his teeth to grab the sights and to rip his slide back. And he stayed in the fight. And I don't remember if he died or not. But you know, would I teach use your teeth to rack the slide? I wouldn't teach it, but I would give it to you as a tool to put in your toolbox, that whatever way you can get this slide backwards, and I don't care if it's hitting it, I don't care if it's running it on your leg, hitting it with your arm, using your elbow, using your teeth, doesn't matter. If you can move this slide back a very small amount, it will release that slide and get your slide back in battery and get you around in the chamber. So you can talk about this slide release and say it's no good. Another thing this guy said is, I did research. I'm into research. Well, if you research bad shit and you repeat it, that don't mean a damn thing. He said this is not a fine motor skill. He's wrong. That is absolutely a fine motor. He's saying it's a gross motor skill. He's wrong. It is not a gross motor skill. Gross motor skills are arms, hands, flight, walking, running, fighting, doing things that are large in nature and doesn't require small, complex hand-eye finger coordination. Fine motor skills like writing, picking up a small object. I mean, my hands are cold right now, and I mean, I can barely do the slide release because it freaking hurts. And if I had gloves on, it would be even worse. And people, well, you need to get a big one. Glock makes theirs too small. They make it small for a purpose. They don't want you to be able to do that. They want to force you to do the right way, so when you get in a crisis, their gun's not going to fail. You're not going to be dead with your slide lock back and rounds in the chamber and your finger here like this when you were shot in the face, because you have to concentrate and you've lost focus and you have tunnel vision and you've lost peripheral vision, so you can't see. And you go into fight or flight and your heart rate's up and you're breathing hard and your blood pressure jumps to the roof and you're pumping in oxygen, and now all of a sudden you got to look down, or you have to remember this. This guy on the computer's like talking like, yeah, use it, it's not fine, look, I can do it just... He's in the safety of his office in front of a computer playing with his gun that's empty, that's probably got all his training on a gun range where some guy's saying, ready on the left, ready on the right, ready on the firing line, draw one round, bang. Wow, that was a good hit, man. I'm a great shot. Dude, that ain't training, and if you think that's going to make you survivable in a crisis incident, you're wrong. So, I can't tell you enough, and this isn't about this guy or that guy. This is about why gross motor skills continue to work in a high-risk, threatening situation, whereas complex, fine motor skills do not. There's been studies on it. There's been there's been reviews of crisis incidents. There's been reviews of people. They've done test experiment after experiment. When things are going bad and you're going in a fight or flight, or you're fighting for your survival or a life-death situation in a threatening act, and your body starts doing all your sympathetic nervous system kicks in, and your body's doing all this crap about finger dexterity, and the blood rushes from the fingers just like it is cold now, and my fingers hurt when I touch something, and you get pain receptors so you don't feel pain, and all the blood's going to your large muscle group so you can fight, run, walk, twist, your core. Everything of that is working, but this is not working. You know, I was going to bring 3 balls out here and juggle it in the cold, because it's harder to juggle in the cold than it is when it's warm. Because I'm colder, and if I mess up or miss a little bit, I can't adjust as quick. As I get older, my things, I used to be able to do the Spock thing easy. As I get older, my arthritis, I can't. I was trying to do Boy Scout thing, the other thing on this, and I can't do it with this hand. I used to be able to do it. My dexterity is going, because as you age, you lose things. I cannot do this with this hand. No matter, I just can't grab it. Now, I've been bit by a dog in this hand. My fingernails are screwed up. I've got arthritis. I don't know how many times. I've been bit 1,000 times with a wrap. But the crushing of the dog biting this wears on your arthritis. And then a couple times the dog missed the wrap and chewed my hand up. And a couple of my own dogs bit me. So my hand is just not as good as it used to be. This is a fine motor skill. Hand-eye finger coordination. If you think this, if you're telling people, me touching that little thing right there with this thumb is a gross motor skill, I'm sorry, you're full of shit. And I just don't know how else to say it. So that's my spiel. And again, I don't get anything if you use my technique. This isn't my technique. This is what I've learned and what I've seen and how I've seen it progress over years and how training has changed over the years. I'm telling you, my opinion, you can take it, leave it, love it or hate it. My opinion is if you're training to use your slide release, you're shortening yourself in a critical incident. Anybody I was training, I would not let them use it. I didn't like it. I had old timers come to the school. You know, when I was teaching cops, they'd come out there. They didn't want to be at the range anyway. They wanted to shoot once a year. They didn't clean their gun. They didn't do shit. They'd been a cop for 20 years and they just didn't care. And they would get out there and use that slide release. I go, dude, lock your slide back to the right and do it the right way. Well, it is the right way. I was taught that when I went through the academy and at every other agency, and it's worked fine for me. Well, you're a dumbass, and I can't help that. And I don't care if you can't change and if you can't accept new knowledge and new technology, and with all the scientific and video and actual experience evidence that we've gained over the years with all the shootings, if you want to discount all that, you can do that. But when I'm training you, you're going to do it my way because I'm going to say that's the way I taught you. Okay, I'm not going to teach you a negative training technique that I think is going to get you hurt or that's going to set you up to fail. That's just not what I'm going to do. And I had guys that, most of the guys loved my training because it was actual, it was usually better than what they got at other places. I had some old guys like, you know what, that damn goer, all he wants to do is go out there and freaking do all this fancy crazy shit, got us running and doing push-ups and fighting before we shoot. I don't need to do all that shit, I just need to qualify. You know what? You can do it any way you want. And I'm sure who's ever running the range now, I don't really give a shit how they're doing it. On my watch, when my guys were out there, if they got in a shooting and they got killed, I'd feel responsible because I was training them. And I took it as my responsibility to prepare them the best they could. And I'm telling you, I didn't teach anybody to use their damn slide release. I taught them to use large muscle groups, large gross motor skills. Do not get into fine motor skills because in a crisis you're going to lose it. And you're going to lose it for several reasons. Not just for fight or flight. You're going to lose it because it's cold, because it's raining, because it's wet, because you got shot in the hand, because when you went through the door was slammed on your hand and now you can't work your hand and your thumbs hurt. There's going to be 1,000 reasons on why these little fingers get hurt in an incident, get stuck with a needle, etc. And I've been in many fights and I know the hands always take a beating in a fight. They get smashed, they get caught in between something, they get twisted. Your hands take a beating. And if you're in a fight or flight and you end up pulling your gun after your hand's taken a beating, you don't want to get caught up in, oh shit, my thumb doesn't work. And I watched that video of that guy who said he went to all this training and he said it would work. Well shit, it doesn't work. Now you got a bullet in your head and you're dead. You know what? You can listen to who you want. I'm telling you, if people that are teaching that, I don't get it. What's Smokey doing out here trying to photobomb me again? That cat's always trying to sneak in on my videos. Boy, what are you doing? If you're on a bird, you better leave that bird alone. You're going to get a beating. It's like, whatever, Dad. All right, we'll end that there on fine and gross motor skills. I'll put a link in the description about my fight or flight page. Read it. It's got some great information. I've updated it 100 times since I put it up. It has got some really good information. If people read that and understood that, man, you talk about understanding what happens, when it happens, and even when you get a little nervous, or even when the hair on the back of your neck stands up. Mokey Moke! You're a good kitty.